actually look like if Australia joined the war in Iran? Not in the limited rotational way we've seen in Iraq or Afghanistan, not as a token coalition partner, but as a serious, high-end military contributor alongside the United States and Israel in a conflict with Iran. US President Donald Trump previously put Australia and other countries on blast for not assisting the USA and Israel to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And while there are talks of ceasefires and a pause in hostilities, at the time of writing, there is still serious conflict happening. And putting aside the question of whether or not we should have, the fact is that that stretch of water is incredibly important, as we can all see from the prices of petrol at the stations. So today, let's look at a hypothetical. Say Australia did join the fight. What would that look like? What could we actually send? And would it be enough to matter? I'm Pikos, and today we're talking tactics. Iran isn't a non-state actor. It's not an insurgency. It's a heavily armed regional power with ballistic missiles, advanced drones, naval asymmetry, and a doctrine specifically designed to counter Western military superiority. Once the fighting started, Iran began targeting not only US and Israel in retaliatory strikes, but also all of the Gulf states surrounding them. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Oman, they all had missiles sent their way. And to start, Australia did send support to those Gulf states. An Aussie E-7A Wedgetail early warning and control aircraft was deployed to help protect and defend Aussie civilians and others in the region. The Australian government also provided advanced medium-range air-to-air missiles to the UAE. The Wedgetail was initially deployed for a 4-week period and will provide long-range reconnaissance to help secure the airspace above the Gulf. And then US President Donald Trump requested help from NATO allies and others to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. With 20 to 25% of the world's oil flowing through this passage of water, and Iran having effectively closed it with sea mines and missile strikes on oil tankers, it has caused oil prices to skyrocket. So the USA put the call out to countries who use that oil to help reopen it. So let's say Australia answers that call. What do we actually send? The Australian Task Group. An Australian military task group for this operation would be made up of mostly naval and air force assets. It's likely that we wouldn't be sending boots on the ground type operations. Here's what this task group would comprise of. The Navy. For primary naval air cover, one Hobart-class destroyer would be part of the group. This ship is designed for exactly this kind of environment. The Aegis combat system allows it to track and engage multiple airborne threats simultaneously, making it highly effective against these kinds of attacks Iran is known for. Cruise missiles, drones, potentially even ballistic missile threats. The Hobart-class destroyer doesn't just defend itself, it helps defend everything around it. Other naval ships, but potentially oil tankers, attempting to pass through the strait. The Hobart-class becomes a shield. Supporting it would be at least 2 Anzac-class frigates. Their role would be anti-surface warfare, subsurface warfare, and secondary naval air cover. While the Hobart-class is defending, the Anzacs are detecting, tracking, and engaging threats before they get close. They will hunt submarines before they strike, disrupt surface attacks before they mass, and create a buffer zone around our most critical assets. Air capability from the fleet would be extended by the MH-60R Seahawk helicopters, providing anti-submarine warfare, surface strike options, and reconnaissance. These aircraft dramatically increase the reach of the task group, allowing it to detect and respond to threats well beyond the radar horizon of the ships themselves. They would work in tandem with the Anzac frigates. Then there's the potential deployment of a Collins-class submarine. A sub would be one of the most strategically significant contributions Australia could make. They operate in the shadows, gather intelligence, track adversary movements, and if required, strike without warning. Iran relies heavily on asymmetric naval attacks, including fast attack craft and covert operations, and so a submarine adds a level of unpredictability that is extremely difficult to counter. Mine warfare is another area that can't be overlooked. Iran has long invested in naval mines as a way to disrupt shipping and control key waterways. One of Australia's Hobart-class mine hunters may not be the most glamorous asset, but in this scenario, it becomes critically important. There aren't too many situations nearby Australia where these ships are very useful, but here in the Strait of Hormuz, it would be vital. Keeping sea lanes open isn't just a military objective, it's an economic one. And mines are one of the cheapest and most effective ways to shut those lanes down. But none of this works without sustainment. A supply class replenishment ship would be essential. Modern naval operations are fuel intensive, ammunition intensive, and logistically complex. Without a replenishment vessel, even the most advanced warships are limited by how long they can stay at sea. And then I'd potentially include HMAS Chools. On paper, it's a support ship. In practice, it's a platform for flexibility. It can transport troops, operate helicopters, and act as a staging base for operations that don't neatly fit into conventional categories. For this group, Chools may be useful for supporting SASR operators that may or may not be required for secret squirrel operations. Which brings us to the Army. In a conflict like this, Australia is unlikely to deploy large ground formations, but it may deploy something far more precise. The Special Air Service Regiment represents a capability that is small in size, but disproportionately influential. Included in this task group would be one SASR team supported by two of the CH-47 Chinooks operating from HMAS Chools. These operators could be tasked with reconnaissance, direct action, or target designation missions. These would be the kinds of missions that aren't publicly detailed, but can have outsized strategic effects. If the Navy provides presence and protection, the Army provides specialised operators for secretive missions. The Royal Australian Air Force provides striking power. The Air Force. At the core of Australia's air contribution would be at least one squadron of 12 F-35A Lightning II fighter jets, with the possibility of a second squadron. This would give Australia a highly advanced capability to operate inside contested airspace. The F-35 is not just about stealth, but also information dominance. It can detect, track, and share data on threats across the battle space, acting as both a sensor and a shooter. In a coalition environment, this makes it incredibly valuable. Alongside the F-35s, we'd send 6 to 12 of the FA-18F Super Hornets. These aircraft provide a different kind of strength. Where the F-35 excels in penetration and information, the Super Hornet excels in payload. It can carry larger bomb loads and sustain high sortie rates, making it ideal for ongoing strike operations against fixed targets. Supporting both of these platforms would be at least 4 and up to 6 EA-18G Growlers. In modern warfare, controlling the electromagnetic spectrum is just as important as controlling the air or sea. The Growler can travel with the formations of F-35s and Super Hornets to disrupt enemy radar, communications, and air defense systems, making it easier for our other aircraft to operate and survive. Range, however, remains a fundamental constraint. This is where the KC-30A tanker becomes indispensable. 2 of these tankers would be sent, and possibly a third to give a crew a rest. By refueling aircraft in flight, it allows Australian fighters to operate at extended distances and remain on station for longer periods. Without tanker support, the entire air component becomes far less effective. Logistics again play a central role. 2 to 3 C-17 Globemasters would handle heavy transport, moving equipment, personnel, and supplies across vast distances. Meanwhile, another 2 to 4 C-130J Hercules would provide more flexible, lower level transport options, particularly into austere or forward operating bases. Situational awareness is maintained through platforms like the P-8A Poseidon, which monitors maritime activity, and the E-7A Wedgetail, which acts as an airborne command center. 3 to 4 P-8A Poseidons will keep constant, wide area surveillance over the fleet and the surrounding maritime environment. And the Wedgetail in particular is a force multiplier. There's already 1 deployed, and we'd send another 2 for battle space management. And while we're at it, it'll be a trial by fire for some of our emerging systems. Let's send an MQ-4C Triton, an MC-55A Peregrine, and a couple of MQ-28 Ghost Bats. These aircraft could provide additional surveillance or autonomous support capabilities. In a high-intensity conflict, this would be a rare opportunity to test these systems under real-world battle conditions. How effective would this force be? So how much difference would this Australian task group actually make in reopening the Strait of Hormuz? The challenge breaks down into 3 key threats: mines, missiles, and maritime harassment. First, mines. If Iran has seeded the strait with sea mines, clearing it is slow, dangerous work. This is where Australia makes an immediate contribution. A Huon-class mine hunter directly helps reopen shipping lanes, and it would be protected by the Hobart-class destroyer and Anzac frigates, creating a secure bubble for those clearance operations to take place. Without that protection, mine clearance simply isn't possible. Second, missiles and drones. Iran's strategy relies heavily on striking ships from the coastline and from the air. This is where the Hobart-class destroyer becomes critical. Its advanced air defense systems provide a protective umbrella against incoming threats. At the same time, the F-35s and the Super Hornets would conduct strike missions against missile sites, while Growlers disrupt radar and air defense systems. Supported by Wedgetail command and control, this creates a layered, coordinated effort to reduce Iran's ability to strike over time. Third, maritime harassment. Fast attack craft and swarm tactics are a core part of Iran's naval doctrine. Here, the Anzac-class frigates and the MH-60R Seahawks play a key role, detecting and disrupting threats before they get close. A Collins-class submarine adds further deterrence, while P-8A Poseidons provide wide area surveillance to spot movements early. Compared to the United States, Australia's military is tiny, and this task group isn't a massive force coming in to beef up the US-Israel alliance, but what we do bring is capability. The Australian force wouldn't lead the operation, but it would be a highly effective part of it, helping clear the strait, defend shipping, and suppress threats. And who knows, hopefully we could finally get some oil back in this country. On its own, it's not decisive, but as part of a coalition, it's exactly the kind of force needed to get the job done. But what do you think? Should Australia send military assistance to a conflict like this? If we did, do you think my suggestion of capabilities to deploy is correct? Is it not enough and won't make a difference? Or is it too much and would it leave us undefended back at home in the Indo-Pacific? If something breaks out down in our neck of the woods, we need to make sure we're properly defended. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. And what do you think about the whole Ben Roberts-Smith situation? To be honest, I'm pretty pissed off about it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below, because I want to hear from you if you think we're doing the right thing by prosecuting one of our most decorated war heroes. But that's it for today. I'm Mel Pikos, and we've been talking tactics.